Hi everybody, it's Ariel Warren, registered dietitian nutritionist, certified diabetes care and education specialist, and I have also had type 1 diabetes for over 25 years. Today I want to talk about the 5 tips to help you with your carb counting. So I've been getting this question a lot, or I always get this question really. I work at an endocrinology clinic, but I also have a private practice online where I work with type 1s across the United States. And so this is to help you go from your current arbitrarily guessing the amount of units to having a better estimate of how much insulin to take for the amount of carbs that you're eating. The reason why this is important is that when you are eating in an unfamiliar situation, then it allows you to have more certainty. So if right now let's say you take 5 units for breakfast, you take 4 units for lunch, you take 6 units for dinner, but let's say that you want to eat something different than you usually do. Maybe you're not really feeling your usual oatmeal in the morning, so you want to go for some eggs. But now that you're taking 5 units, it's going to cause your blood sugar to drop. Now let's say that you want to go out with some friends and you're going to go crazy and go get some waffles, okay? Ooh, that's going to be hard on anybody who has diabetes. But, okay, you're getting waffles, you take the 5 units and your blood sugar just goes crazy and it stays high all day. So carb counting can allow you to figure out how many carbs are in your meal so you can dose a more accurate amount of insulin to keep you from those highs and lows. So I have 5 tips to go over to help the carb counting process work for you. First off, we need to identify which foods have carbohydrates. So there are 3 types of macronutrients. First, we have our carbohydrates, then we have protein, and then we have fat. Fat is kind of the insulin resistance factor. Doesn't necessarily cause your blood sugar to raise if you're just to eat fat, but because we eat carbohydrates and protein with fat, it just causes our insulin not to work as well. So, and then we have protein. Protein causes a slow and delayed spike in your blood sugar, especially if you eat really low amounts of carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates have more of a direct causation of your blood sugar rising when you eat carbohydrates, and that's why we tend to focus more so on carbohydrates, but we should always also consider protein and fat. But for this video, we're just talking about carbohydrates. So the carbohydrate foods that you need to be aware of are definitely breads, potatoes, rice, baked goods, but also know that carbohydrates are in vegetables, they're in fruits, they're even in nuts and seeds, maybe a very small amount, but every food tends to have a little bit of carbohydrates, but the ones that you really need to pay attention to for the starters are the ones that are really high. So next we need to figure out how much fiber, how to dose for that as well. Generally speaking, most foods have at least a little bit of fiber, and so I don't want you to worry about fiber all that much because fiber is not digested and it doesn't cause your blood sugar to rise. Benefits of fiber include improved bowel movements, improved cholesterol levels, especially soluble fiber, improved gut health. It helps you achieve a healthy weight. Fiber helps you live longer by reducing your risk of heart disease and all cancers. And for us with diabetes, fiber delays and reduces postprandial blood sugar spikes and helps you achieve much more stable overall control. With fiber foods, you want to subtract it from your total carbohydrates, but I wouldn't subtract it unless it's over 5 grams of fiber per serving, because it's going to make it way too troublesome to be subtracting the fiber out of everything. So if it's more than 5 grams, then I would subtract. If it's less than 5 grams, I wouldn't. And then, you'll find what works best for you, but this is just kind of out of the gate what you could do. So the next part is knowing Diabetic Exchanges. So what that is it's a list, and you've probably heard of it if you've met with an educator before, but it gives you a serving size of a starchy food that equals around 15 grams of carbohydrates. And so this is to help you carb count more easily. And so, for instance, Diabetic Exchanges would be 1 slice of bread equals 15 grams of carbohydrates, half a cup of mashed potatoes equals 15 grams of carbohydrates, half a cup of beans is 15 grams of carbohydrates, a fourth of a bagel is 15 grams of carbohydrates. So this list, you can get it through an educator, or you can also get it online. What I would do is I would just print off the list, highlight the ones that you eat often, and so it'll keep you from being overwhelmed. You may see a list of all these foods, but okay, yeah, I do eat some oatmeal sometimes. I do like these fruits. Highlight those so you don't feel overwhelmed. So the next step is using hand measurements. The reason why this is important is you may understand or know how many carbohydrates are in a certain type of food, but that doesn't really help you if you don't know the measurement of the food that you're looking at. So very generally speaking, a clenched fist is about the size of a cup. So let's pretend here. So let's say we're going out to a Thai restaurant. I like Thai food. And you see that you have a mound of rice on your plate. Then you could physically put your hand up and kind of compare. But at the same time, that might be kind of weird, especially if it's on a first date and you're not giving any context. But yes, what I do now, I've been carb counting for a long time, is I can look at a food and think, okay, yeah, that looks somewhat similar to the size of my hand. I know that's around 45 grams of carbohydrates. And then you can piece out the other pieces, because again, first we're identifying the type of carbohydrates. We know the diabetic exchanges. So we know how many, what's the serving size, for about 15 grams for our favorite foods. And then we can compare it to about the size of a clenched fist, which equals about a cup, to figure out how much of that food we have on our plate that we're about to eat, okay? Again, this is very, very generalized. I have an average size hand, but I've worked with patients and they have ginormous or small hands. So what I would do is you could take your hand and you could measure out a certain type of, any type of food. You could do rice, for instance, and compare your hand to about the size of a measured cup of rice. And then you'd know, okay, my hand's a little bit bigger than a cup or a little bit smaller than a cup. And so then that can help you when you're in an unfamiliar situation, how to measure your hand compared to the food you're eating. Okay, so the last tip I would say is the most important, is finding the foods that matter most to you. So what that means is you don't need to know the carb count for every food on the face of the planet. You just need to figure out the carbs that you eat in your diet. And so what I do with patients that want to learn how to carb count is we go through these steps, but I go through this last step and I actually physically write out a chart for them. And we go through their breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or perhaps they're doing intermittent fasting, but we go through their meals. There are 3 columns. The first column is the food, the second column is the amount of the food, and the third column is the amount of carbohydrates. And we'll list them out. And then they have these key factors, and then they know, okay, this is a lot less overwhelming than I thought, because you need to know every carb count out there. You just need to know the foods that are most important to you. Hopefully you're having a good day, and we will see you next time. Again, if you need help with your diabetes, I am here. I understand what you're going through, and you can reach me through my email and my website below. Okay, goodbye.